Okay, for this project, we'll be creating a two-point perspective futuristic city. All right, so we'll be creating a city in 2-point or in 1-point perspective, and I'll show you some ideas that you can do for both. I only have 12 of these rulers, so if you borrow one of these rulers, I need these rulers back by the end of the period, these longer clear plastic rulers, okay? Make sure you get those back to me. I only have 12 of those, and I will be counting them at the end of each period. Now, here is the horizon line. Remember the horizon line for any perspective drawing that you're doing, 1-point or 2-point. For this one, I'm going to be doing the 2 points. So I've got 1 and 2. So again, I'm going to label those my VP1 and VP2 for vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2 that I'll be referring to. Now, there's 2 different ways you can do this. Either you can do it like we did the letter M, where you have both sides, you start with the corner and then have both sides going to vanishing point 1 or 2. Or you could divide the paper in half and have all of your buildings that are going to be on this side go to vanishing point 1, and all the buildings that are going to go on this side go to vanishing point 2. And we're going to create a dense city to make it look like a cityscape, and I want it kind of futuristic. So I'm going to actually base mine letters. I'm not going to have sort of your traditional letters
Heather
in that.
Eller, please report to the main office. Heather Eller, please report to the main office.
So I'm going to start with a corner right here. And just like we did the corner of the M, then I've got those 2 points. And so again, I've got the 2 points that are going to go to both. And again, I'm going to draw these lines lightly, drawing them very lightly, because a lot of the lines that I'm making, I'm going to be erasing it later. So I'm just sort of lightly drawing in these lines. Notice I'm not going all the way to the vanishing point, because my building's going to be over here, and that would just end up being a lot of erasing. So again, you see that I'm sort of giving more pressure, and then I go lighter because I'm going to be erasing that. And then to vanishing point 2. All right. Now I'm going to show what is the depth of the building. So perhaps I come over about, I don't know, say this far, and draw the other line. That's going to be the depth of the building, the front of the building. Then I'm going to show the side of the building over here. Right? And again, I can take out the horizon line because that's going to be behind the building. We can't see it through the building. And then I'm going to create these 2 kind of maybe slots or something as this very sort of contemporary building. And the same thing with this line. I'm going to start with this one. That's going to go to vanishing point 2. This one to vanishing point 2. Anything that's on this side of the building would go to vanishing point 1. Anything on this side would go to vanishing point 1. All right? And I'm going to make another section here. Okay. Now, this part's a little bit tricky in that the inside, I want to create this sort of interior as if this cuts through the building, is that these corners right here, to make them 3-dimensional, right here, this corner will go to vanishing point 1 over here, because there's this side and then there's this sort of plane that repeats here. So this corner here will also go to vanishing point 1. Right? And maybe we see just slightly, because it's right near the horizon line, so we're not going to see very much of that, but that would also go toward vanishing point 1. Since it's right on the horizon line, we really don't see that slight line down there to make that 3-dimensional. Okay, and then maybe I have another section of the building that's underneath, so I'm going to make another corner, say here. Again, because I'm creating a dense city. I want it to look like a futuristic city, so it's a dense city of buildings that are really layered, one in front of the other, in front of the other. They can overlap. All right, so again, I've got this here that I'm gonna draw that out. Here's the corner, the next corner of a building. Draw that out. And here's a corner of a building over here. Corner of a building, going to vanishing point 1, right? Now I'm gonna make the end part of this building, maybe it ends over here. This is a much wider building because it's closer to us and it's supporting the weight of this other section of the building. So there's my two ends. This corner over here, since we would see the top, would go toward vanishing point 2 over there, that line. Again, once it hits the building, then I can stop. This corner over here will go to vanishing point 1. Right? And then I could make some other, maybe some type of stilts or something inside of this that's holding this building together. This section of the building is on stilts over here. And attached to this. Maybe this is where the elevators go through here. All right, so the idea is that we're going to create these futuristic cities. So again, I'm going to keep adding buildings. I'm going to put other buildings behind here. Now that one's in 2-point perspective. And of course, if you want to create the whole thing in 2-point perspective, absolutely, feel free to do that. Now remember I talked about before, if you wanted to, and this is just another example, if you wanted to divide your paper in half, and perhaps you create a building over on this side, and you just want to do 1-point perspective. Maybe you're thinking, I don't get this whole 2-point perspective thing. I'd rather just do a 1-point perspective. So with that, I'm just going to make a sort of a simple rectangle, like that. And then with this, wherever there's a corner on this side of the building, it'll go to that 1 point. So this one will go to that point. This will go to that point. And then I can just make the edge, whatever the depth of the building is. All right, so that's a much more simplified, again, I don't need that horizon line in the middle. If you want to do something much more simplified so that it's just where everything on this side of the paper goes to that 1 point, all your buildings, and then everything on this side of the paper goes to that 1 point. If you want to do that, then that's fine as well. So I'm going to leave that up to you if you want to do the 2-point, or if you want to divide your paper and do 1 point on either side. And then eventually what we'll be doing is, again, you're going to keep drawing more and more buildings, making this sort of dense city, contemporary cityscape. So here's one that I did last year, where again, now you can see I've gone in and started adding the color, but I have streets going through. Here's the same type of building that I'm making there. Some of the buildings are sort of based on letters, like the letter S here, as if you, or a G, having a building in the shape of a letter, having a sphere up here that's very futuristic. Perhaps this is where some type of escalators go into here. And so just think about how you can create these cityscapes using either, again, the 2-point perspective that we talked about, or just the 1 point, all right? You can see that these are all 2-point perspective in this one, all right? And I'm going to show you just some examples from previous years, some of the student work that I've had in previous years. Here's one that's it's more of like a city that you would see now, right? kind of like the downtown Houston, except for the colors, of course, and then the having a letter O here, so that's a bit more contemporary type. And there are actual buildings like this in places like Shanghai and Beijing that actually construct these types of very contemporary style buildings. Here's another one that's, and this was also where you have the 1 point going to this side, and they were doing the 1 point going to this side. Here's one where the student did 2 point perspective, so it's a good example of a 2 point perspective, and I like the idea of adding in the trees and the mountains in the background. This is a great example of a 2 point perspective drawing with the park here and having the street lamp. They really thought about the details. And here's one where it's a bit more contemporary. This is very futuristic with all of these type of shuttle places in between the buildings, perhaps some type of elevator system that goes in between the structures. Here's one that's really dense with letters in different directions. This one is actually sort of raised up on these very thin stilts, it appears. I thought that was a great example of, and again, they used the 1 point over here and 1 point over here, if you really look at it, where they divided that paper in half. All those different jumbled of letters turned into buildings. And here's another good example of using that. This person actually did a point here in the center, so their buildings in here all go to that center point if you follow their perspective lines. And then they had another point over here, so everything over here went to that perspective line, and then everything over here went to this perspective point here, that vanishing point. So they actually had 3 different vanishing points in one, which creates sort of an interesting composition as well. All right, so think about how you're going to design your city, your futuristic city. Of course, the color, we're going to add color and using the light and dark values. Like here, you can see they've left this very, very light orange, kind of a medium orange, and then dark to create even more depth with the piece by adding value and lights and darks. All right, so good luck and have fun.